Following the revelation of what some are calling a secret deal between the NRCA and Tradewinds Citrus Limited, help me guys, thank you, which led to the discontinuation of prosecution against a private company, the Jamaica Environment Trust is calling for a shake-up of the NRCA board. Theresa Rodriguez-Moodie, who's the CEO of JET, is joining us via Zoom to talk a little bit more about that. Theresa, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Morning, Theresa.
Secret deal is JET's term, or is this really it's a universal observation? Just want to
No, this wasn't our term. I think this came from interviews initially with the community and with their lawyer, because at the time that they learned about it in court, it was secret, because when the judge had asked for the terms of the mediation agreement, she was told no. So at that time, it was secret. It is no longer secret because as a result of public outcry, it was released to the public on November 29, and the terms are now laid before us. But there is a non-disclosure clause that was in the mediation agreement, which is why it was coined secret.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to step back, Maeve? Can we step back a little bit?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Right.
In a nutshell, give me the backstory here.
All right. In a nutshell, there was an oil spill in December 2023. And soon after the oil spill, and it was caused by a facility, Jamaica Beverages, which is owned and operated by Tradewinds, right? So NEPA responded, fisheries responded, the police responded, the community responded. In fact, it was the community's vigilance that brought it to the attention of the public authorities. And soon after, a couple of days later, the NRCA, which is, NEPA is the administrative arm of NRCA, right? So they decided that they're going to take legal action against Tradewinds. Then 10 months later, we're told that the case is dismissed and there was this secret deal, as you've heard, and nobody understood the terms of any kind of settlement. And in fact, this is called an environmental crime, right? So, or an environmental offense. Essentially, the laws, we have 3 different laws, and the laws are basically they're very clear. It says that if you have a violation or an environmental offense is a violation, regardless of whether harm is proven. So essentially, accident or not, it is still an environmental offense. And so in this case, when you think about mediation, it's not something that you would have expected to have been mediated, but it was mediated, and then the terms of this mediation was kept behind this non-disclosure agreement. And it only became known after this public outcry and a lot of press. And then there were, I suppose, the government felt under pressure and released it. Also, we saw the resignation of the NRCH board chair.
Yeah, but you think that's not enough. JET feels that's not enough, and you are now advocating for more to be done. What does this more look like?
Yeah, well, it can't end here because, in fact, we've heard nothing since this. And it's almost as if we're expected to just accept that it's now public and we've had the resignation, so let's move on. But there are so many things that were wrong with how this was handled. And the DPP herself indicated at the time that they were not aware of the decision. They were not aware that they were going this route, and they did not have a file. So what we are calling for is a thorough investigation by the DPP into NEPA and NRCA's handling of this case. We have written to their office of the DPP, and in fact, we have gotten a response as of just late last week, which has acknowledged receipt of our letter and said that they're looking into things. So we don't have the details of what that means, but at least we've been acknowledged. We also want to look at the enforcement and compliance policies that NEPA has, because, an effective environmental regulatory authority has to be very transparent, has to engage public in a meaningful way, and has to have a lot, that accountability framework. These are all elements of good governance. And so we're saying that we need to look at how we have this enforcement and compliance by the agency. And I think that the NRCA board, we need to look at the NRCA board, because right now we only have about one environmental professional on the board. We need to look at this. Yes, an environmental regulator authority does need to have, different kinds of professionals. You need to have legal, you need to have public health because of the nature of the decisions. But that environmental background associated with those main or those core functions also is extremely important.
How big is that board, Theresa? How many members does the board
about
comprise?
12. So,
And there's only one person with an environmental background?
Right. The rest of them, you can see public health. I think there are about 2 doctors. We have lawyers. We have, different backgrounds, but it's not enough. We need to have that background of environment as core, because what we've been pushing through all of this, even before this situation, is that you have to change how we look at things. We have to lens through the environment. So it cannot be just about economy and jobs. Yes, those are important. But if you focus on the right to a healthy environment, which is that core right, then a lot of other things fall in place.
Yeah.
So,
Mrs. Rodriguez-Moodie, I heard the folks from True Juice saying they didn't do anything wrong. They were upfront with everything. They didn't pay any money, and they're doing this to help the recovery. And also, this went through the courts, and the courts say, all right, if they say everything is good, and they've moved on. So, can you take it back again? Isn't it kind of I'm not a lawyer, but isn't it kind of a double jeopardy here? Because the courts have already said, all right, we're satisfied with what went on. I think that's what they said. So can you take it back again?
No, trade wins.
Yeah, trade wins.
Right.
Well, I'm not a lawyer here either, right?
Yeah.
And from what I understand, the judge asked, can I see what you have decided to mediate? Because they asked to mediate initially. And I think around in October, and they wanted the judge to order mediation. And the judge said, no, you do things your way, come back to me. And then on November 27, they came back to the judge and indicated that they've decided to drop the case, and they've mediated. And when the judge asked for the terms, she was denied, and she was told no. And I think the clerk of the court did not have the file and any of the information around mediation. So I can't say it's the ordered by the court. I don't think that would be a correct term here.
Okay.
But I think that the DPP, they grant a fiat. So on behalf, they will say it is an environmental offense, and they allow NEPA to prosecute crimes under the NRCA Act, the Wildlife Protection Act. But from what I understand, I do believe that DPP can look back into it.
Okay.
Can open it back up.
And you're not satisfied that the head stepped down. You, as Sim said, you want more.
No, I don't think that was enough. It was not just one person that made that decision.
Okay.
And I think if we're looking at bigger systemic issues, we have to look at the big issue, like why was this allowed to be mediated in the first place? Because what we're trying to avoid is similar things.
Right.
And what we heard from Minister Samudo in his statement was that they've asked the NDA clause to be removed going forward. So in fact, what we have learned is that NDA clauses were something that were typically included when they had situations like this. So we don't know how many other cases have been mediated away. It's just that this particular issue was very public, and the community was very engaged and very involved and wanted to understand the outcome. And here it is that we learned all of these different things, by the way.
Yeah. Final question from me. Are you suggesting that the folks at TradeWinds should be held more accountable?
Well, if we think about accountability here, what they were asked to do was clean up. And the fines were, because the fines were so minimal. I think it's important that we use the law. The law should have been used, essentially. And the law is not just about paying a fine. The law is about going through the process and you be held liable. The mediation agreement the mediation agreement states that TradeWinds is not liable for any harm. And I think this is where we have an issue with, because the law is very clear.
Okay.
It says environmental offenses are violations regardless of harm. And there's this pushback that says we cause no harm.
Right.
There was no fish kill, so let's move on. And that's not what the law says.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Lots
All
of
right.
questions.
Yeah.
Lots of questions still remain. And I think that's a part of the issue.
Yeah, man.
More questions and answers. But hopefully in time and with continued advocacy on the part of JET and other environmental organizations, we can get more answers. Thank you very much, Theresa Rodriguez-Moodie. Appreciate it. CEO of the Jamaica Environment
All the best to you and your family.
for the holiday.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, man, thanks.
Take care.
All right, folks, going to take a break. When we come back, we share a story of true grit and drive. All right, stay with us. Soon come.